In the last video, I covered should I invest, but I did miss out a key piece of information, something key to talk about. In this video, I'll cover that topic and talk about getting all your ducks in a row, ready to start your investing journey. I missed out talking about high interest debt. So high interest debt is debt that is classically over 10%. My figure of high interest debt is actually 6%. So anything over 6%, I consider high interest debt. Now, why high interest debt is so important is because it can snowball over time. I'll show a graph illustrating this on the screen now. And as you can see, if you have debt that's about 25% over a period of time, that debt can run away. And there's no way you can consistently and safely out invest debt that grows above, say, 10%. So my figure for high interest debt is 6%, but I know the industry standard is 10%. So you'll have to decide what your value is based on your risk tolerance. Or if you're not sure, then just use minus 6% or just use the industry standard of 10%. I do actually have a car loan that is 6%, but I invest overpaying that. I have no other debt over 6%. High interest debt tends to be buy now, pay later schemes, credit cards that have gone over their introductory offer. So the interest on those can rack up quickly to like 25%. And then certain loans or anything else, anything really. But check your interest rates on all your debt and do pay off the highest interest debt first, and then once you reach that figure of 10% or 6%, then you can start investing. There are other things that are widely understood that you should do before you invest. Some people call this the financial order of operation. There is many flowcharts. I'll discuss and show on screen my simplified flowchart that I accept. Maybe it's not fair to say accept, that I would tend to use. And that is, before you invest, match your employer pension contributions. So if your employer will match your contributions up to 3%, then pay 3% into your pension. If they match it up to 5%, pay 5% into your pension. The reason being that anything your employer will match is free money that you're leaving on the table if you don't pay up to that threshold. If you're not sure what your employer's match contributions are, you just go and reach out to your HR department or your employer, and they should be able to tell you. They'll also be able to sort everything out. It's super easy. I checked exactly the same with my employer. Next is clear any high interest debt, which we've just discussed. Next is your emergency fund. I have my own views on emergency fund. I actually invest in my emergency fund, but you'll have to decide whether how likely it is that you're going to lose your income in the foreseeable future, or your risk tolerance. Will if something happens, will you be forced to, or will you want to sell your investments to cover any hardship? Now, an emergency fund is usually anywhere between 1 and 6 months worth of spending money, but that's a whole another topic. Then savings for your short-term goals. So in the first video, I mentioned my friend Danny, who's saving for a house, and we decided don't invest that, leave it in cash should you need it, because you don't want your investments to go down when you need it. Once all that's in hand, then you're at a position where you can safely and happily start investing. I did speak a little bit about this, but knowing your risk tolerance before you start investing, I think is very important. So during my journey, I've realized the emotional part of investing is important. I mean, financially speaking, when you listen to a lot of people and get a lot of advice about investing, they do consider that the absolute best financial outcome is the way to go. But we're emotional creatures and we are terrible at investing. The humans are by nature really, really bad at investing. An emotion can cause you to panic panic sell, even just have sleepless nights, or just be of detriment to your life just because something happens with your investment. And it goes back to the why do you invest? So I've got a video on that. I invest not just to make money, but for quality of life overall. And if you're stressed over your investments, then that's not achieving the goal, even if it is achieving the goal of making you wealthier. There is, based on your risk tolerance, you can change how you invest. So you can invest fully in equities or stocks, which tends to have the higher growth over time. However, they are slightly more volatile. Or bonds have lower growth over time, or historically have had lower growth over time, but they are less volatile. I say that there have been periods recently where bonds have suffered just as well as stocks, just as much as stocks. But who knows what the future holds? All we can go on is history, and historically speaking, they are less volatile. And then, if you've got a really higher risk tolerance, you could pick other things to invest in, which we'll touch on in a minute. Just beware of what you're doing. And if you're a beginner, I would say absolutely avoid that. Stick to stocks and equities or bonds. Remember, you want boring and steady. Boring and steady outweighs exciting and sleepless any day of the week. Product wrappers. So another thing you should consider is, where do you want to hold your money? And I've briefly mentioned, and I probably will mention in all the videos, or a lot of my videos anyway, there's certain product types you can use. So for example, my favorite, Stocks and Shares ISA, flexible and tax advantageous. Then you've got normal investor accounts, which are not tax favorable, but provide the flexibility. And if you've already used your tax-free allowance, then it's maybe some may say the next best thing. Then you've got certain sites you can invest in specific, so like Coinbase for crypto, exchanges for Forex, and places to invest in commodities, but less of that in the beginners section. That'll be for further down the line. I'm not saying any's right or wrong. It's just low-cost index funds via Stocks and Shares ISA has historically been the safest, and I'm going to use the word best, for want of a better word, best way to grow your wealth over time, and the most consistent. So next, you might want to think about what you want to invest in. Again, covered this. I'm not saying one's better than the other. There's no right and wrong answer, but there is a historical winner. So you can invest in stocks and equities, bonds, property, commodities like gold, crypto, Forex. Each one of them deserves their own video. But historically speaking, and the way the products and the market has gone for beginners, I would say a globally diversified world index fund via a tax-effective wrapper is the way to go. And just a reminder on index fund, an index fund is just a little piece of every company all over the world. So a little piece of Apple, a little piece of Google, a little piece of Meta, a little piece of BP, a little piece of Lloyd's, for example. So I hope that was useful. So in summary, before you invest, remember, clear your high interest debt, have an emergency cushion if you want one, know your risk tolerance, prepare for your short-term saving goals, and then start your investing journey. So next I'm going to do some videos on exactly how to open up a Stocks and Shares ISA and give you a bit more information on Stocks and Shares ISAs, and do some walkthroughs of some of my favorite products.